How's it going, guys? This is Jack here with the Commanders Wire, and welcome back to another video. Today we have a pretty long recap of the Washington Commanders and Miami Dolphins joint practice that occurred today on August 12th. We have, maybe 35 different things to go over, as well as an overall recap at the very end. I have a lot of things that I saw through different articles, as well as X posts that I wanted to note in today's recap of the thing, and this is going to be a pretty decently chunked video. I guess that's one way to put it. But we have a lot of things to go over, a lot of good things, a lot of bad things, and just overall takeaways from today's joint practice. But before we get into that, I really would appreciate it if you guys would go down below, drop a like, subscribe, turn on post notifications to know when I post next, and you guys will be notified whenever I post more Commanders content just like this. So without further ado, let's get right into today's video. So overall, I think Washington had a very good day at the joint practice with the Miami Dolphins. The broad consensus was that Washington won the day, particularly when its starting units were on the field. Jaden Daniels and the receivers consistently found success against Miami's secondary, while Washington's new-look defensive front repeatedly got into the Dolphins' backfield. The Commanders' official site called it a standout day for both sides of the ball, while Miami Focus reporting acknowledged that Miami's offense was frequently under pressure and its secondary had a difficult session. Dan Quinn structured the practice around short, competitive periods, one-on-ones, red zone, 7-on-7, full teamwork, and then move the ball / drives in 2-minute periods as well. There was no tackling to the ground, and Washington was not installing a game plan specifically designed to beat Miami. Quinn wanted the players evaluated against unfamiliar opponents, which is always good to know. So to start out, number one with the offense, Jaden Daniels was arguably the biggest winner of the day, and I guess he is the best. The descriptions of Daniels were remarkably consistent. He was accurate, decisive, and in complete control of the offense. The Commanders' official recap said he was essentially picking apart Miami's secondary with precision, and Hogs even described his performance as surgical. What stood out wasn't simply that Daniels completed passes. He was working through progressions, delivering accurately downfield, and operating David Blount's new offense pretty thoroughly, which requires more huddling, under center work, and pre-snap movement with increasing command. Daniels himself was much less celebratory afterward. He said Washington had produced explosive plays, but that offense still wasn't perfect, emphasizing the team is continuing to build its chemistry and continuity. Commanders takeaway: this is probably the most encouraging development from the practice, and Jaden Daniels didn't simply survive his first look against a different defense. He looks like the best offensive player on the field. Stephon Diggs and Jaden Daniels looked extremely comfortable together. The Daniels-Diggs chemistry was probably the biggest offensive storyline. Diggs and Terry McLaurin were described as clear stars for wide receiver one DB one-on-one drills, and both winning all their matchups in the period. Diggs made one particularly impressive catch despite tight coverage from Dolphins cornerback A.J. Green III. Diggs then continued producing during the team periods. Daniels found him repeatedly throughout the practice, including a touchdown near the back of the end zone during red zone work that drew one of the louder reactions from the crowd. Daniels also completed a pass to Diggs during Washington's final 2-minute drill, and you can definitely think that the stock for Stephon Diggs, Terry McLaurin, and Jaden Daniels is significantly a lot higher than it was before. And this matters because Diggs only joined Washington recently. The fact that Daniels is already locating him consistently against another defense is a very positive sign for his ability to become a legitimate wide receiver 2 rather than merely a veteran depth piece. Terry McLaurin also just looked like Terry McLaurin. He was excellent in the receiver versus cornerback period, and like Diggs, repeatedly won every matchup he took. Miami's defensive backs generally struggled to stay attached to Washington's receivers off the line. And the Save Day live practice feed also logged Daniels to McLaurin action during the team drills. The more interesting, bigger picture development was that the combination looked like McLaurin plus Diggs gave Miami major problems. Washington finally looked like it had two veteran receivers capable of independently winning man coverage. Antonio Williams had another very encouraging practice as well. The rookie continues to make his case for playing time. In wide receiver DB one-on-ones, Williams used a move against Ethan Robinson that created a roughly 5-yard separation. He then scored during red zone work. Dolphins defensive back Major Burns had relatively good coverage, but Williams gained enough separation toward the front corner of the end zone to make the touchdown catch comfortable, and I would say his stock is up as well. This is exactly what Washington needed to see from Williams. He now succeeding not merely against his own teammates in camp, but against unfamiliar NFL DBs as well. Treylon Burks made one of the catches of the practice. He delivered an impressive contested catch during the wide receiver/DB period. Daniels lofted the ball toward the corner of the end zone with Dolphins defensive back Miles Battle essentially draped over Treylon Burks, and Burks still tracked the ball down, made the over-the-shoulder catch, and it was in for a touchdown. Daniels later completed another pass to Burks during Washington's 2-minute period, and I would say Treylon Burks' stock is up as well. His size and contested catchability remain his path to the roster, especially because Washington has several smaller separation-based receivers in the wide receiver room. Washington's receiver room also collectively beat Miami's defensive backs. It wasn't simply McLaurin and Diggs. Washington's official observers thought most of the Commanders' receivers won their individual matchups, regularly getting Miami defenders trailing from the line of scrimmage. Miami side reporting reached essentially the same conclusion, noting that the Dolphins secondary had a difficult one-on-one period and later allowed Daniels sizable throwing windows during teamwork. That's important because wide receivers had looked like one of the Washington's biggest questions entering the camp. Today was a very, very strong response for that big question mark in the in the offensive side of the ball. Washington also dominated portions of the red zone period. The second team offense was particularly productive in the red zone. Repeated touchdowns included Daniels to Stephon Diggs, Antonio Williams touchdowns, Marcus Mariota to Jaden Bradley, Marcus Mariota to Nick Nash, and many more. Mariota's touchdowns of Bradley's and Nash came back-to-back to end the red zone period. The Hogs Haven live feed also recorded Daniels to Jerome Ford for a touchdown during the broader practice session. This is one of Washington's clearest offensive wins of the morning. Rashad White also flashed with a long touchdown run. The same day live practice feed logged a roughly 40-yard touchdown run by Rashad White. That's notable given the competition between White, Jaquavier Jerome Ford, and the rest of the backfield in Washington. The backs weren't consistently the center of the practice, but White provided one of the explosive plays, with his stock being up as well. Bill Krosky-Merritt didn't have a huge day, but definitely ran physically. Washington's official practice report described the running backs overall as relatively quiet. Bill best reported moment came late in the move the ball period when he ran through contact from a Dolphins defender and continued out of bounds, drawing a reaction from Washington's sideline and the crowd. It's very on brand for Bill, not necessarily a huge statistical practice, but the contact balance physically were visible. Offensive line. This is one of the big question marks, especially after the Laremy Tunsil injury. Was better in pass protection than run blocking, and that's very unfortunate to hear. That is definitely something that I think we need to get better at as an offensive line unit. And this was an important test because Washington is obviously operating without Laremy Tunsil. The Commanders' offensive line and Miami's defensive front were more evenly matched in individual pass rush drills than Washington's receivers were against Miami's secondary. Chris Paul had a particularly good rep, defeating Matthew Butler with his footwork, technique, and hands, and the overall assessment from Washington's official observers was that the offensive line held up reasonably well in pass protection despite the concern around Tunsil's absence. The same-day live feeds broader assessment was the pass protection was better than run blocking, and that's something to continue watching as the camp progresses. Brandon Coleman specifically got an important test at left tackle. Obviously, Coleman was working at left tackle as Washington continues adjusting its offensive line with the Laremy Tunsil injury. The same-day practice feed specifically tracked Brandon Coleman's and Chris Paul together on the left side of the offensive line, as well as Coleman's taking reps against Miami's rushers. It wasn't a report of Coleman getting overwhelmed, which in itself is meaningful given the concern over his blind side. That said, Miami did have some defensive success, so this wasn't a clean sweep for Washington's offensive line. Miami did get pressure on Washington, and it wasn't all positive. Dolphins edge rusher Chop Robinson was credited in the live reporting with getting to Marcus Mariota for a would-be sack, and Miami's Joshua Uche, I don't know how to say his last name, Uche, had reps against Brandon Coleman. So Washington's line passed the general test, but there are still vulnerabilities in that offensive line unit. The final 2-minute drill was good, but not perfect. Daniels moved Washington efficiently with completions to Stephon Diggs, Chigakonko, and Treylon Burks, but Washington ultimately did not score. On the final offensive possession, Daniels tried to hit Luke McCaffrey high in the back of the end zone on 4th down, but Dolphins rookie safety Michael Taft got up and knocked the pass away. That was arguably Miami's best defensive moment of the entire session, so the correct evaluation of Daniels isn't perfect. It's excellent overall, but Washington left points on the field at the end, unfortunately. So for the defense, Washington's defensive front was probably the most dominant unit at practice, which is amazing to hear, especially what we had to witness last year. This is the biggest defensive takeaway. Washington consistently disrupted Miami's offense with defenders repeatedly getting into the backfield, generating would-be sacks, batting or affecting passes, and creating negative runs. Miami's side coverage corroborated that both Malik Willis and Quinn Ewers spent significant portions of the session under pressure and would have taken multiple sacks in normal game conditions. That's encouraging because the pass rush was one of Washington's biggest offseason priorities over the past couple months. Odafe Owe specifically looked dominant. This would have been Owe's best practice as a Commander so far. Miami reporter David Ferrones, I believe is how you say his name, observed Washington's defensive line consistently beating Miami's offensive line, including Oweh getting around left tackle Patrick Paul. Paul later committed a hold on the Washington defense. Another same-day observer, Josh Taylor, estimated Oweh had another 4 would-be sacks during the practice since quarterbacks weren't live. Those aren't official sacks, but the repeated pressure was obvious. Oweh also generated pressure during Miami's final 2-minute period, forcing an incompletion immediately after Washington's pressure. He also reportedly looked disciplined against the run rather than merely pinning his ears back as a pass rusher, so his stock is way up. K'Lavon Chaisson was constantly in Miami's backfield as well. Chaisson had a terrific day. He did tweak something in his foot. He was limping for a little bit, but he looked to be back in the action pretty not too much after, I believe. During an 11-on-11 period, Amik Robertson opened with a tackle for loss. On the very next play, Chaisson got to Malik Willis for what would be sack. Later, Chaisson tracked down a running back on an outside run and stopped him for the line. Then during Miami's final 2-minute period, Chaisson again got into the backfield for another would-be sack on the first play. Excuse me. There was one concern. The same-day live feed noted that Chaisson limped off the field at one point, which I did note before. However, because the official recap has Chaisson participating in the late 2-minute period, it appears he was able to return to action. That's an inference from the sequence of the same-day reports rather than an official injury diagnosis, so his stock is up as well. Daron Payne was disruptive. Payne generated interior pressure and forced Malik Willis out of the pocket during Miami's move the ball period. Miami's side reporting also had Payne beating Jonah Savanea, I don't know how to say his last name, during individual line work, and Hogs Haven live feed additionally credited Payne with what a would-be sack of Malik Willis. This is exactly what Washington wants. Pressure isn't coming exclusively from Oweh as well as Chaisson off the edge. Javon Kinlaw also flashed in individual work. Miami side reporting credited Kinlaw with using a swim move to beat Kalen Proctor during the O-line D-line work, and that gives Washington another interior defender who won a clear individual matchup. Joshua Josephs continues to force himself into the conversation as well. His strong camp continued against unfamiliar competition. During one run, Joshua Josephs was the first defender to reach Carlos Washington Jr. before Leo Chanel finished the play. Later, Josephs diagnosed the play action rollout by Quinn Ewers. Almost instantly, he was in Ewers' face as well as the quarterback turned around and forced him to throw the ball into the ground. In live game conditions, the Commander's official report believed Josephs would likely have recorded a sack, and his stock is up as well, and he's becoming one of Washington's more interesting depth pass rushers alongside of, I guess it's kind of strange to call him a depth pass rusher, but alongside Dorrance Armstrong. Amik Robertson was all over the field. He set the tone for one of the 11-on-11 period by blitzing into the backfield and stopping the running back for a loss on the first play. He also played tight end coverage on Dolphins receiver Malik Washington on a deep target during Miami's late offensive work, preventing a meaningful separation and helping force an incompletion. His confidence afterward was obvious. Robertson essentially said Washington expected to perform that way and wants to carry the mindset that opponents stepping onto their field don't belong there. His stock is up as well, with Trey Amwood's status worth watching. Robertson's performance is particularly important. Mikey Sanders produced the defensive play of the day. He jumped a pass and returned the interception for a touchdown. Miami side reporting supplies additional context. Willis targeted Malik Washington on a shorter outside route, and Sanders beat the receiver back toward the football to take it away. Sanders then celebrated by punching the ball into the air while teammates followed him toward the end zone. For a player who has had some ups and downs in camp, that was a major positive, and his stock is coming up as well. Leo Chanel's run defense showed up, and Leo Chanel was part of Washington's swarming effort against the run. On the Carlos Washington Jr. play mentioned above, Josephs reached the runner first, and Chanel arrived to finish it. The live practice feed also specifically highlighted Chanel versus the run, suggesting his physical downhill game was noticeable throughout the practice. Frank Louvu also had an interesting matchup with Devon Achane. The same-day practice feed specifically tracked Frank Louvu against Devon Achane, one of Miami's most dangerous offensive players, as well as Louvu's coverage against Malik Washington. Miami had inconsistent success moving the ball overall, particularly because Washington's front was filing downhill quickly. Washington swarmed the run, and this wasn't merely about sacks. The defense reportedly got multiple players around the football. Shy Tuttle stopped a run at the line during Miami's move the ball period. Josephs and Chanel combined on another. Chaisson chased down an outside run, and Robertson created a negative play with a blitz. Miami's own coverage noted that Washington's defenders were fast downhill and frequently crowded the point of attack. That is significant after Washington's struggles stopping the run in recent seasons. Quan Martin also recorded a pass breakup. The same day live feed highlighted a Quan Martin PBU during the session. It's a smaller note than Sanderson's interception, but another positive for secondary. Washington needs to improve dramatically. Sonny Styles was involved in the top defensive work. The feeds specifically highlights Styles during the competitive periods, although the index version of the post does not preserve enough detail about the individual snap to basically give enough information, but I would categorize him as present and involved, but not one of the 5 biggest defensive stories today, with Frankie Louvu, Mikey Sanders-Joe, and a lot of other players making a lot more bigger plays than he is. But I would categorize him, like I said, he's there, he's making plays. Do not worry at all. He is going to be fine. Miami struggled badly during its move the ball period. This might have been Washington's best team defensive period. Payne immediately forced Willis off his spot. Tuttle stopped another play at the line. Joseph blew up the play action attempt against Uris, and Washington's pass rush repeatedly reached the backfield before Miami could develop anything vertically. Miami's offense simply had difficulty sustaining movement. Washington won the final defensive 2-minute situation. The Commanders finished the day the same way the defense had played most of it. On the first play, Chason would be sack. Next play, Owe, pressure, and an incompletion. Miami eventually got itself into a position with 5 seconds remaining, but Washington kept the Dolphins out of the red zone and ended the practice with a stop, and that's a very encouraging situational win. Tight ends and backups. Lawrence Cager really helped himself today. He caught 2 passes from Marcus Mariota during third down work, and that's important because Cager and Kost Yankoff are battling for a potential 4th tight end position, while John Bates remains sidelined from practice, and I would say his stock is up. Jake Okonkwo remained involved with Jaden Daniels. He wasn't one of the headline stars, but Daniels found him during Washington's 2-minute drive. It also showed that Okonkwo getting work on the jugs machine before practice, reinforcing how much receiving work Washington is giving him for the breakout list. Miami produced a big return against Washington's coverage unit during special teams. There was at least one notable negative for the Commanders. Miami wide receiver Malik Washington produced what Dolphins observers described as an explosive return up the right sideline during special teams work, drawing an enthusiastic response from Miami special teams staff, and that's something that Washington will want corrected. The kicker competition continued. The same day, Commanders practice feed specifically logged another segment of the kicking competition between Washington's kickers. However, the material that I looked at does not provide a trustworthy complete make/miss chart, so I'm not really going to go too much into exactly what happens between Drew Stevens and Jake Moody. Rookie Matt Golbin, the center, had some snapping issues. One of the less positive details in the live feed was multiple bad snaps from rookie center Matt Golbin, and that's worth watching because center depth is already an area Washington has been sorting through, and his stock is a little down. So everything that I put out, talked about in the last couple of minutes is everything that happened today, and I'm going to go over my biggest winners from the practice, as well as some biggest concerns. So to start out, Jaden Daniels, quarterback, he is the guy of the future. He is extremely accurate, consistently found multiple receivers, looked comfortable operating the new scheme, and made Miami's secondary look vulnerable. Jaden Daniels is looking amazing. Odafe Owe repeatedly created pressures and would-be sacks. He beat Patrick Paul. He generated pressure late in 2-minute drills and looked disruptive versus the run as well as the pass. Stephon Diggs was undefeated in reported one-on-ones, and he had a red zone touchdown. He had repeated connections with Daniels, and his chemistry is developing remarkably quickly. Clavon Chason also had multiple would-be sacks and pressures, a lot of run stops, constantly around the backfield, and only concern was briefly limping off before apparently returning. And lastly, Mikey Sanders-Joe, best defensive play of practice with a pick 6. Read and attacked Willis' throw rather than simply catching on an errant pass. And next group, Antonio Williams, Terry McLaurin, Joshua Josephs, Amik Robertson, and Treylon Burks are all, I guess, honorable mentions. Now, the biggest concerns. There really wasn't any major concerns that Washington had reported today, but the big one that I would flag is the offense failing to finish in the final 2 minutes last red zone opportunity, and the run blocking appearing less convincing than pass protection. Matt Golbin snapping issues and the Miami breaking a significant return during special teams work are all things that I would be a little worried about. Chason limping off briefly is also worth monitoring, although the fact that he was reported making another play later in practice is encouraging, meaning that he probably was back and healthy. So what this means for everyone else is looking great. I would not be too concerned about everyone else. I think overall the joint practice went as well as it could be. We had a lot of starters playing, which is good because we know that Dan Quinn doesn't really like to play stars, especially in week 1 of the preseason. We probably shouldn't see that many stars at all, unfortunately, but we'll just have to see. It's good that we got a lot of I guess information about the joint practice with a lot of the stars coming out today. One thing, I guess the biggest concern I did not list here was just the offensive line, right? I think our left tackle position with Laramie Tunsil would have been perfectly fine, and then we obviously put Brandon Coleman at left guard. I think that would have been arguably top 15 in the NFL. Unfortunately, with Laramie Tunsil going down, putting Brandon Coleman at the left tackle spot and bringing Chris Paul back to be the left guard, I think leaves a little bit more to be desired, as well as having some issues there with the center depth. Nick Allegretti's already, I think, in my opinion, not amazing as a center. He's not awful. He's not my ideal center if I were to pick anybody in the world, obviously. And on top of that, him just being injured and not playing at all, he did show up for practice yesterday, and he's working around the field with drills, but he did not play today, unfortunately. So we already have like basically what would be a third string center with the starting lineup. So I'm not surprised that there was some interior deficiencies in that offensive line, and that's why the running game was not really working as well as it should. But besides that, I'm really excited about this team. There's a lot of people that I know. I have a friend that's a Dolphins fan. You know who you are. Love you to death, but your team is garbage. I cannot wait to see this Washington Commanders team, destroy you guys on Friday. Stay tuned. I'm probably going to do another recap of the game, most likely coming out Saturday. There'll be a video out hopefully Saturday going over the recap of the preseason game. But this is looking really good for this Washington Commanders team. I'm really excited to see these guys continue to putting in work over the next couple weeks, as well as going into week 1. So this is where I'm going to end the video. Like I said, it's been a long video, over 20 minutes. I really would appreciate if you guys would go down below, drop a like, subscribe, turn on post notifications to know when I post next. You guys will be notified whenever I post more Commanders content just like this. Thank you guys so much for watching, as well as drop a comment. Let me know what your thoughts are about the entire, in the entirety of this joint practice. I'm really curious to see what you guys have to say. With that being said, like I said before, thank you guys so much for watching. God bless, and hail to the Washington Commanders.